Hey everyone, happy Monday and happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I hope that regardless of whether you have off or not from work, that today is filled with a very strong sense of the freedom that Martin Luther King Jr. worked so very hard to instill in American life and living. I would love to say that I am talking about something so very important for today's video podcast, but as evidenced by the fact that I'm wearing a Tinkerbell shirt, that is not the case. I'm actually going to address something that came up last week in the writing definition, the writing challenge, and the writing rule, which were all about literary fiction. Now, if you read any of those, you may have noticed a little bit of an attitude toward that particular genre from me, in which case you would have noticed correctly. Here's my problem with literary fiction. Let's just get right down to it. It tends to be pretentious. It's not the word choice or the Victorian sense sentence structure that necessarily makes it snotty, even though those are very particular, as we discussed last week. It's the sense of moral superiority that so many readers, myself included, take issue with. I'm trying really hard to think of ways to make my point without using specifics and bashing any particular author or book, but not using examples for substantiating my argument here is a little on the difficult side. So what I think I'm going to do is simply talk about a book, a literary fiction novel that is done well, and then use that as a springboard for showing how so many writers, unfortunately, don't live up to that admittedly high standard. So here goes. Mark Zuzak's The Book Thief is most definitely literary fiction. Told from Death's point of view in the midst of Nazi Germany, it follows a young girl as she learns just how much she loves to read. As The Guardian, which is a UK newspaper, puts it, in The Book Thief, we meet all shades of German, from truly committed Nazis to the likes of Hans Huberman, who saves a Jew. Zuzak is no apologist, but able to give a remarkable insight into the human psyche. This book does such a great job of exploring what it means to be human. It details a little girl's drive to learn, a little boy's adorably innocent obsession with a cultural taboo, and that would be Jesse Owens, who was an African American Olympian who just stole the show during the Nazi Olympics. And that, of course, was not supposed to happen. The master race was supposed to steal the show and tell the world how superior they were, and they failed miserably thanks to this supposedly inferior individual from America. So that is a great little sideline story in The Book Thief. There's also a grown woman who can't see past her loss from, I think it's 11 years ago. She lost her little boy, and so it covers those emotions. It shows a family who is desperate to save their children who are alive, and so on. It covers the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the horrific, and it does it all in a quietly eloquent language that always presses readers to keep reading. It does that by engaging their free will. There's nothing pushy about it. It presents a worldview, but it does not preach it. Unfortunately, that is simply not the norm. The norm for literary fiction, as at least as far as I've read, is an impenetrable belief that life is meant to be suffered through, that beauty can only be found in pain or confusion or circumstances that are completely out of our control. And it takes that a step further by then preaching that anyone who believes otherwise is common or non intellectual or inferior in some way. If that's your belief, then that's your belief. I'm not going to sit here and try to change your mind on that, even though I really do think that life is a little bit more worth living on the other side of this argument. But if you want to write that belief into a novel, literary fiction or otherwise, then that's your choice too. I just have three quick little points that I would like to make about that. Number one, I really do think that's a really sad worldview to live by. Number two, I'm all for having strong beliefs, but there's also this little thing called respect that's a nice addition to one's list of mentalities and expressions. And number three, honestly, that kind of pretension is just not my cup of literary tea. If that keeps me out of literary fiction circles, then so be it. I'll stick to more hope-filled reads that treat me like an adult. And my definitely not pretentious Tinkerbell shirt. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week.